For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Rhyne. I am not an engineer, so I'm about to give a talk. You'll see that deals with engineers and business people and I stray toward the business side of things. I started off my presentation title with Spock meets Kirk. But apparently when I filled out the Google form, I had a nice autocorrect, and Kirk actually turns into Spock meets something else.
You get an update here.
Sorry about that, guys. Nice. Let's do this again. Spock meets Kirk. Right. So I was notified of this. I believe it was Charles Perry over Twitter. Said, "Hey man, that's really great. Did you mean Kirk or did you mean Kurt?" And then of course Joseph Linsky came up and said, "Hey, I really thought you were going to do it with Kurt Cobain." And so it was like, oh wow, Spock meets Kurt Cobain. And I was like, oh, you know what? I thought of Kurt. I thought Kurt Russell. Because one of my favorite movies is Stargate, and that's a cool haircut. So life goals, guys. No, but so what I'm talking about today is about how engineering and business can communicate better. It's definitely a soft topic at this conference, but it's something, especially the communication topic, or side of things that I think is a phenomenal topic that needs to be talked about more in our industry. So when I say communication, so what? Who cares? Why does this matter? What's the big deal about communication? Why should you guys be here and not sitting here watching about, I don't know, how to do something technical at another conference, like UI collection view or something like that, right? Communication, to me, is super important, and I don't want you to just take it from me. I hope you take it from some other people. So a lot of people don't know this. This is Anne Morrow Lindenberg. She was married to Charles Lindenberg, which you guys probably know. Charles Lindenberg he wasn't the first person to transatlantic flight, but he was very well known for going from I think it was New York to Paris. And he was a really bad person later on, so we won't talk about him anymore. But Anne Morrow Lindenberg was actually a really famous author and aviator as well. And I like her because she has one of my favorite quotes on communication. And it goes, "Good communication is stimulating as black coffee, and just as hard to sleep after." And that's really cool because it actually hits it. And one of the reasons I love this quote is because a lot of people don't realize until you have the actual good communication how great it is. You leave with a feeling like this is awesome, and then you think about it, and you reminisce about it. Memories are made from great communication. One thing I would say here is bad communication can be just as bad as this. You have just as bad of a memory, and you can stew about it and stay up there. So, perfect quote here. Another person that we all like to talk about is Steve Jobs. And the reason this matters here is because, again, we're talking about engineering and business needs. If you watch the keynote, actually talking about this. So the later part about it with Pixar was literally talking about the intersection of the humanities and technical stuff, or basically technical stuff and humans, right? And this is, without getting too stereotypical, I will later. This is what we're talking about. You have these different perspectives colliding together, which causes, frustrations in communication. So how can we make these two types of perspectives communicate better? Jobs, this is really important to Jobs. And actually, one of the things after he died was done by Jonah Lehrer, the New Yorker, said, in the age of intellectual fragmentation, Jobs insisted that the best creations occurred when people from disparate fields were connected together. When our distinct ways of seeing the world revolve around a singular problem. So this is why communication is important, and this is also why we have to talk about it, because we have different perspectives in this industry. We have different ways of thinking about things, and that's good. That's good. But communication isn't always done in the best way. So another reason it's important, they've done studies on this, and studies on this, and studies on this, and they've looked at, let's take back, let's not look at anything of the talent of the team, let's not look at, all the factors that you think would say, this is a successful team, this guy is, we have these really smart people from MIT, we have these really smart people from Harvard. They can actually look back at a team and look just at their communication and it's the number one factor to tell whether they're going to be a successful team or not. So this is another reason it's important. If you have a team that communicates effectively and well, they're more likely to be successful. And so in this industry, where we're clearly bringing different perspectives together, and we clearly see that this is the way we solve these everyday problems, these challenging problems in today's world, well, we want to be successful. So communication should be literally the number one thing you should worry about in your team. It's how you communicate. Another reason that this is me appealing to the engineers is, what is communication? We can talk about the lack of communication is, and we can also talk about what communication is. Communication is data. The only way you can get information out, I mean, they say communication is essentially the exchange of ideas, the exchange of information. Information is data. So the only way you can actually get data and to create something is to have communication. So I'm going to go through a part of this presentation. Please bear with me. It is somewhat, I hope I don't offend you, but let's put it that way. Let's talk about some stereotypical perspectives. We all know this. We all know the engineer, the business guy. And so when we think of an engineer, what do we think of? Like these two guys, right? Sheldon. I don't know how many times when I'm trying to describe an engineer, I just go, oh man, they're like Sheldon, right? Spock was this, obviously why Spock beats Kirk. Probably broader they think of these people, right? So what is it about an engineer? What are these stereotypes that generally get put on by engineers? The first one I already appealed to you guys. Engineers like data. I mean, they love it, right? Like this is the way you guys seek out solving a problem. Is you first need to have information. You need to have as much information. More data the better. Give me more. I need as much data as possible, right? You guys also, the reason you care about a lot of data generally is because you care about precision. And the only way to be super precise about something is to have a whole bunch of data to do it. The other reason is the more data you have, you can be precise because you like to follow logical processes to get there. A to B to C to D to get E to D. I mean, this is the way you guys. This is the way engineers go about it. I assume I have mostly engineers. So those are the stereotypical things that you guys are. Oh, yeah, I like that. Okay, good, right? So what about business people? Who are we talking about when we talk about business people? We're talking about this guy. I mean, if you haven't seen this guy, yeah. Slick rigs. We're talking about smooth operators. People like that. People that are very extroverts, socially outgoing, trying to smooth their way around. We're talking about people like this guy. Very well-known people that are very good at business, the art of the deal, right? But so, what are business people like? How do they go about things? What are the stereotypes that get employed in them? Well, the first one is that they think about feelings. Most decisions are, trust your feelings, trust the force, whatever, right? Other things are, things like these two things. Like you look at this guy. He wanted to look like Thor. He put like a golden bag on his head. Got some TVs there, and it's like, yeah, that's a great costume, Close enough. Let's ship it. Right? So, they like to do things just close enough. I don't care as much about precision. We're almost there, right? Another person, if you guys don't know this, Eddie Van Halen, right? Eddie Van Halen has a phenomenal quote that describes the way business people do it. I mean, this is the complete opposite of engineers. It goes, to hell with the rules. If it sounds right, then it is. It is. Right? That's the way it is. That looks right. That sounds right. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Let's do it. What? So really, what happens when these worlds collide? Because they collide a lot. I mean, trust me. I'm an owner of a software business, and I have 23 engineers. I think I have 24 engineers that work for me. So I'm definitely the outside of this, right? So what happens when these worlds collide? The first thing that generally happens is, one company, a company, or in our case, our company, they tend to favor one perspective. Right now in Silicon Valley, most of the companies are headed up by engineers. They favor engineers. They favor engineers' perspective, and they're going to go about things like an engineer. But what ends up occurring when this happens is you hire people that have similar perspectives as you. The people at your company either really agree, yeah, that's exactly the way I see it, or it's oh God, I can't stand the way that guy thinks about that problem. Another thing that occurs is this ultimately after this happens, if one person really agrees with it, the other perspective feels really not valued. Like you don't see my perspective, you don't care about my perspective. And this can happen with engineers and business people all the time. I mean, because the traditional, I think, business model is business team talks to user group, comes to engineering, we need this. I don't care how hard it is, I don't care if it's smart, I don't care if it's right, do it. Those ideas, And then this ultimately leads to individuals in the groups and by their fears, but frustration. That guy, he just doesn't understand my perspective. He doesn't see my perspective. He's not handling it the right? And then you stew about it. And then at best you say, God, I wish that guy would just understand me. But most likely what happens is, at worst, what happens is you say, God, that guy's an idiot. He's just not as smart as I am. I'm smarter than him. And this happens. Notice how I said individuals say, this happens on both sides. This happens. Business people say the same things that engineers do, and vice versa about each other. So what ends up ultimately happening here is you just stop communicating. You have misunderstandings. It's common things that happen in teams. You get to the point where it's like, I'm not even going to talk to the guy because I know he thinks this. So why should I even talk to him? And then, so as we said before, if communication is data, then the lack of communication is data loss, right? Data loss is bad. We know this. Come on, engineers, everyone here. If you're losing data, very bad. Fix this now, right? So how can we be better at this? What can we do to ultimately resolve this problem that we clearly see? We have this important. We know that it leads to success. We clearly know there's these stereotypes that go on. But, so how do we fix this? How do we not lead to that? The first thing you do ultimately is cultivate an environment. I stole this, I'll be honest with you, based on humility, respect, and trust. There's a really great book, and I'm blanking on it. I think it's Think Geek that talks about this. But ultimately, what does that mean? I mean, that sounds fuzzy. I think the term they use for it is hard, HRT, right? What do I mean by that? The first thing is really you have to remember that hey, we actually agree on something. There's a reason we're in a company together. We're both trying to reach probably similar objectives, right? You guys care about the product. I care about the product. We want the company to be successful because we want to continue to work on this product. So the best thing to do is find a common place. This is common communication. You come to somebody, you meet them. All right, we're different. How can I find something that we're alike on? So you have to remember that when you do that. Other thing is remember. I just did one of the stereotypes, and I don't think anybody in here is one of the other stereotypes. Generally, you have tendencies. People tend to be like this, but don't just. Stereotypes are very lazy thinking. It's very easy to see the stereotype. I mean, it's actually an old, it's an old way that humans essentially protect themselves. I'm in this gatherer group. I stereotype that gatherer group is different from me, so I can protect myself and I stay safe here. So don't be lazy. Don't automatically assume business guys just some non-technical, right? If you're a business person, don't just understand. Just don't think he's a show. The engineer's a show, or she's a show. Get people face to face, and being at a conference is a great step in this. Get out behind the computer, or don't go to the golf course. Like actually, go down to engineering and see what they're doing. Talk to these people, socialize with them. If that's we're in the same place. We're in a remote company, my company. So I can't always just walk down the hallway. But talk to these people, have face-to-face communication with them. Emphasize empathy. What are we talking about here? Whether it's you individually doing it, or you part of your team doing it, leading your team, leading your company. You should always teach people to when they start to communicate, to think about the other person's perspective before you think about yours. This is like stage one of like how we go about things. This was Ashley talked about it again and again. When you get on Twitter and you're typing out something, you're doing that, you actually think that's a human. There's a human behind this thought. It's not just about the product to the point that you can criticize them. There's ways to do it. Emphasize it. Promote honesty. This goes just as well because a lot of people, what they do when they empathize is they just don't tell you their honest opinion. That's bad as well. Like, you can have an honest opinion where you disagree with somebody, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't convey that opinion to them. But it's just there's a way to convey it to them. But if you don't honestly, if I don't honestly think you're giving me the truth, then eventually I'm going to start not believing everything you say. I don't trust you, right? So if I don't trust you, then we have a lot of other problems and misunderstandings, and we stop communicating, right? The next thing is the determined context. And really, what I'm saying here is this is more in terms of decision making, because this is ultimately where a lot of these communication breakdowns occur. Is when we need to decide, X, Y, or Z. We need to decide to kill a product. We need to decide to put a feature in, or not put a feature in. So, really, the first thing you do when you determine context to help communication is ask yourself the situation. What do I mean by that? Well, the first question is this, are we trying to decide whether we put a feature in here? Are we trying to decide, I don't know, how many days of vacation we should do? Are we trying to decide whether we should market to this group? Are we trying to decide, whether it's from building a product to communicating with the team to selling something? All these things matter, and it also matters which team essentially has a little more say in it. It also determines your biases to it, because obviously a perfect example of this, and I'll go over a thing here, is you have a blind spot to it. Engineering is going to care about technically building the product. I mean, and when business comes and says, hey, all of our customers want X, if that's a hard problem, or as complications go, it's good. The first thing the engineer says is, no, we can't do that. It's way too difficult. You have to tell them no. Or it's the same thing with business. Business comes and says, I need 15 of these things. And you're like, oh my God, you're just creating an ever-living web of dependencies. I can't do this. There's a better way to do this. But each person has blind spots as to which ones they think is the best way. And just general communication, you should evaluate your blind spots. You should always be mindful of them, right? Because your blind spots are essentially lead to biases. So seek out and uncover your bias. It's intentional. This isn't something where, let's say, you can lazily do it. If you don't think and put effort into this, you're going to fall back into what everybody does. And I do it all the time. Everybody's guilty of it. And you're going to rely on biases, and they're going to affect you. And the first way to overcome your bias is to actually determine if you have a bias about something. And I think you should actually look at it. The next thing to do is state your goals. So when you're evaluating context, what are we trying to achieve here? And it's good to state these actually out loud. I don't mean to just say these to yourself. I mean to communicate that between the person you're talking to. Say to them, okay, our goal here is to increase revenue, right? Well, so how can we increase revenue? Or our goal here is to have a streamlined product that can be maintained by three engineers. When you state your goals and you start talking in that context, it actually levels the playing field. Because a lot of times what ends up happening in communication is a business team and engineer comes in and have completely two opposite goals. And they think a lot of times there's assumptions. So the business person thinks that the engineer has the same goal in mind. Hey, we're trying to sell product, we're trying to make money here, right? And then the product person thinks, no, they understand that this product can't be done this way, so of course they're not trying to have us maintain something that needs a huge team, right? So stating the goals a lot of times clarifies miscommunication. And obviously, doing this process leads to clear communication. I really mean doing this out loud. I think sometimes people say this and they think I mean this. I do it in your head. Do it out loud. Again, if you want data is better. The more stuff you say out loud, the more, even if that person already knew you, yeah, we're talking about that. Okay, great, then we know. Whereas if I don't say it out loud, it's like I can assume. People assume all the time. So the next thing is to over communicate. And this one's a little bit difficult because I think if I go back to the stereotypes here, engineers commonly don't want to communicate, period, right? Or they want to communicate less, and a lot of times they get annoyed with what's seen as inefficient communication. And a joke I give here is my business partner, Peter, as I sit here and I talk to him, I say, hey man, you're like a fireman. Like you find a fire, you can fix it, you get it done, you put urgency on stuff that to me is like not urgent at all. But you want it done right then because it's super important to you right then. And his response to me was, you talk a lot. But it's true. I mean, and I get told all the time, hey, John, sometimes when you come into, sometimes when we're having a meeting or sometimes when we're getting a group of people together, you can dominate the conversation. So when I say over-communicate, I know I am ultimately asking people to do something that can sometimes be uncomfortable at first to do, or sometimes be not natural to do. But there you go. So what am I talking about here? The first is that you have to know the most common way that misunderstandings happen is you don't communicate. This happens all the time. I think Joe talked about it. Hey, the first thing I do is I get a little upset at somebody, and I don't tell them because I don't want to tell them, and then I stew on it, and then 3 weeks later, I'm still not going to tell them, and I blow up at them. Because you never actually had that communication, so the misunderstanding was this person never knew that you were mad, and then later on down the road, you're like, hey man, I wish you just would have told me this earlier, and I would have known. And ultimately what this leads to is the reason you don't communicate, or the reason people don't communicate is, the first reason is they assume you know. That's almost the most common reason. Like, of course he knows that, right? And especially in engineers, one of the things I've found at least is that the assumption is that if I state something and it's obvious, the fact that I know it is because I'm late to the game. Everybody else already knows it. And so if I state something, they're going to think I'm stupid. They already know this. So why should I say it? Or even worse, it's a topic, or maybe it's a different view of you, and you're worried about being judged. And this happens all the time. What if I say something, and the person looks at me and is like, oh, God, did you hear Rick yesterday? Or did you hear Judy? God, I can't believe she said that. What an idiot. Or, God, there she goes off, right? So people just don't communicate. This is very bad. You need to communicate, right? We talk about this all the time, but the statement on there is it's always more convenient to not communicate. It's always more convenient to avoid conflict. And a lot of times communication leads to conflict, or perceived conflict. But I promise you, it's always more difficult to later unwind a misunderstanding with somebody. And you have to do one or the other, at least not success. So eventually blow up, the team blows up, so the company blows up, the product blows up, or whatever, right? So if you know on the back end, if I don't communicate well, we're going to have misunderstandings, and that's going to lead to whatever ways. My engineering argument is it's more efficient to communicate up front than it is to deal with it later. The big thing, this is really huge, is you remove doubt, you remove assumptions, right? If I tell you, hey Joe, I like you, he doesn't have to think, hey, it's Jonathan, I like you, right? If I tell you, Joe, I really like the way you did that, or Joe, that really sucked the way you did that, I'm not saying that loud. But you know where a person stands. There's no guessing, there's no assuming, and ultimately that builds trust, because then I know, me for this statement all the time with politicians. You may not like them, but you know where it stands, right? You hear this all the time. Well, it's actually true because people tend to like to know where people stand. That doesn't mean that necessarily smart politicians in there. You should vote for them. But in general, intercommunication, it's good to know what a person's thinking. Having to guess what they're thinking leads a person they're going to assume insecurities are going to come in, and they're going to think the worst, and you may not ever think that about that person. And then finally, there's such thing as over-communicating. So if you're an extrovert, or you're more likely to be on the opposite end, like I am, of talking too much, it can exhaust people. You should be mindful of that. It can dominate, and people that would communicate would not communicate because somebody else is communicating too much. So this is something very well to keep This is the next point for me is really huge, and the reason I say this is because it's literally in any type of communication. We're talking about teams, companies, people, to users, to customers, to whatever it is. This is like a human universal truth, and it's we love to feel important. Everyone loves to feel important. It's the number one reason we built the fucking pyramids to feel important. People put their names on buildings to feel important. You want legacies to feel important. It's not different for you. It's not different for. It's literally everybody. It's nothing wrong with that, but it's good to know this. So why do I state this? Is because if we're ultimately dealing with people, when we communicate with them, then if you're trying to influence this person, or if you're trying to get them to see your perspective or something, it's very good to keep this in mind. And empathy is one of the things I talked about earlier. One of the main reasons you show empathy, you should show empathy, is because you make the person feel important when you consider their perspective. And I can go on like there's other things like the best way to when you come and talk to a person. If you immediately say you're wrong, you've lost that person. You've literally lost them. Because either A, you're going to prove them they're wrong, which engineers love to do, and you humiliate the shit out of them, and then they hate you because you made them feel very important. Or better, they don't really want to listen to what you have to say or be proven wrong. I mean, all you're doing is strengthening their resolve to not listen to you. Right? We've seen this happen before. Immovable force meets an immovable object, or unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The other things that come into this play are when you're actually trying to convince them of your idea. Why don't you first try to understand their perspective? Because they'll actually if you actually talk it out in their terms. Hey, you're saying X, Y, and Z. I think you're saying X, Y, and Z because of this. But you actually talk in terms of them to the point that you can get them to what you want to say. So this happens all the time with engineers. So the comment can be, this is really difficult, we can't do this feature. And so the first thing I try to do when I talk to them is talk in their terms. Well, you're saying this because you think this is. No, I'm saying it because of this. And then ultimately we get around to the point where they go, well, so you're trying to say this. And if it comes from them, it comes from their perspective, they're more likely to actually consider your perspective because they already feel you've considered theirs. So a big question is how I do this. I've talked a little bit about my team and my company. For those of you that don't know, I work for PSPFK. I'm an owner of PSPFK. It's a PDF mobile framework. So if you have PDF problems about it, look this up. There's my plug. But again, my background is an attorney. I'm not a developer. I know enough about programming to be dangerous. It's probably the best way to put it. But we have a team again. We're 28 people now. We have 4 non-technical people at our company, so we're very heavily engineering. We're a distributed company. So the majority of our people are located in Central Europe. We have about 8 in Vienna, about 3 in Raleigh. We have 10 different countries represented in our company. So there's a ton of different perspectives, and there's a ton of, opportunities for miscommunication and problems. Not just being a distributed team and being remote, but just having different perspectives. So one of the things we do, kind of the way we do this, being a distributed team, is we have hangouts. And that was a great picture of me at the beach. And these hangouts are great. And the use of video conferencing, I've talked to many people that I would think this is obvious now, but they Skype or maybe they Skype call or they don't want the video because they're really shy about, hey, I don't want somebody to see my face or whatever. And like I said, the stuff before, communicating is a lot more than just what you say as well. Seeing emotion is huge. Seeing frustration is huge. If you're pissing a person off, it's much easier to piss them off when you're on the phone and you have no clue what they look like than when you see them getting red beat and mad. Or if you can see them relaxed and happy, it's good to see that as well. So we do weekly hangouts. It's morphed as we've gotten bigger. But really, if somebody asks me, everybody say, "Oh, it's a stand-up call." No, it's not a stand-up call. So why do you do it? We literally do it because we don't have we have Slack as a water cooler. So how do we catch up? It's Mondays. It's in the afternoon for Europe. It's in our morning. And literally, it's hey, how's your weekend? Hey, what did you do? Hey, this funny story happened last week with the company. And it's very much about keeping everybody in the company up to date with what is going on with all of it. So it's a way for us to be transparent and again over communicate things that I think a lot of people say, well, that person doesn't need to know about it, they just need to do the job. We take the opposite approach and try to let everybody know everything. And hangouts is what we do it. The other way we do it is retreats. This is a picture of us going canyoning. For the people that don't know what canyoning is, I didn't know what it was until I went to Europe. Canyoning is best described as going cliff jumping while walking through a creek in the middle of a mountain, I guess, with obviously wetsuits on. So the reason we do activities like this is obviously the team bond. It's the whole point of the retreat for us, and I wrote a blog post on our website about it. The whole point of a retreat for us is to get people in the same room, get people to know each other, get people to be friends. It's really hard to be, I think, and I think engineers find this, it's really hard to be a huge douchebag, whether you're a business person or an engineer, to a person that you know, a person that you've had fun with, a person that you've done things with, shared experiences with. There's a whole thing about psychology about you only have enough room for 100 people for you to truly be connected with. I promise you, those people that you do not see, you do not talk to, they're not in your 100 people. You're much more likely to be connected to people that you talk to, know, and share experiences with. The other big reason we do retreats is it's a time for us to get the whole company together and say, what is your ideas? And let's talk about it. And some of these are business ideas, some of these are how we can, I think one of them came up. We did what we call an Ask Me Anything. You guys know this from Reddit, where our guys can submit anonymously questions and to the management team, literally anything and everything we can answer. And one of the questions was what do you guys think about implementing a no shipping after 12 p.m. on a Friday, so we don't have to stay late? Another question was, how much would you sell the company for? Another question was, which one of you, the three of you, get angry? Of course, obviously one, because you being a business person more emotional. But the point of all this is that you have communication. It's a way to cultivate an environment where people feel a part of something. This is huge for us in our company. The next thing is we're doing an app, PDF viewer. If you guys want to go and beta test it, you can. The reason I put this in here is because it was a perfect example of where we had a business team and an engineering team really fighting over the crux of what we're talking about. So we're developing this PDF viewer, and at first it was like, the goal is for it to be a showcase app. Because we sell an SDK, we have no way for, I guess, people that are business people, startups for them to evaluate us. They don't know how to build an extra project, so they have no clue to demo our stuff. This is a way for them to demo our stuff, right? And then it became the business side of it. This is me. It's like, well, we're spending engineering time on this. I know we're getting indirect benefits, but what's the monetization strategy so we can actually recoup some of that money back? We put an engineer on this. And my first thought was, okay, we need to put an artificial limitation on the amount of PDFs that they can have in their storage. Let's make it 8 PDFs or 5 PDFs. And the engineers are nuts. And they just were like, no, that's an artificial limitation. Customers will hate it. They'll give us what's not. And then it became, I want to give it away for free, right? And at first I was like, oh God, like I've heard this a million times. Like everybody gives it away for free. What's the goal here? Is the goal that we get so many users, we get so big, and we give one out? Well, that's not really what goal we're looking for. We're not VC funded. we actually want to stay in business. And so we had this internal dialogue when we dealt with it. Another thing that happened was there was this button, I don't know if you can see it in the picture. It has a cloud and an arrow up, right? This became a big thing. The point of that button is if you want to save it to the cloud or upload it to the cloud. So the argument from the engineering team was the arrow goes up because it goes up into the cloud. I said, well, when I use Snapchat and I actually want to download a picture, it's a caret of an arrow going down. So that means I download the picture. Well, you don't download to the cloud. I said, but the average user to me doesn't really know that distinction between the cloud and what they're downloading. And I mean, we had this, it went on for like, I don't know, probably 10 hours. And I pissed off a lot having this argument. But it was good that we actually flushed out. We have a good enough trust that these guys know. We both care about the product. We're both trying to make the product better. And they have a valid point of view, and I have a valid point of view. As long as we're communicating and getting that across, it's better than just like, fuck it, I'm not. You're the engineers, I'm going to close this channel and deal with something else. So let's go over a little recap. Just a little shoot through real quick. As we know, a team's communication is literally the most important factor. It's the most indicative factor of a team's success. Communication is simple, right? Lack of communication is data loss. That makes sense. How do you get better at this? Cultivate an environment around honesty, or humility, respect, and trust. You determine your context. Know what situation you're in. Evaluate that situation. By all means, over communicate. I would say err on the side of over communicating and lack of communicating. And then always remember everyone wants to feel important. If you've ever read this book, and if you haven't read this book, a lot of people have heard about it, and they're like, yeah, I've read it. And then I'm like, well, have you read it recently? Because you don't seem to know what it talks about. I read this book literally. I try to read this book once a year. It's an old book. The guy, it was written in like 1908, I think, the original version, maybe 1912. It's been reevaluated, put out editions and updated, but it is literally the best book you can think on communication, whether it's interpersonal communication, whether it's communication in team, whether it's communication in relationship, and by all means, it gives you a million more tips, and you'll hear and you'll go, yeah, that sounds great, and then you won't do it because it's not natural to do it. So you have to think about it. You have to then really okay. So if you have a chance, I highly recommend this book. It's a lot better than my presentation. Telling you why you should make it better. Thank you. I think I have 5 minutes for questions. If anybody has questions at all, by all means, I can talk. All right, cool. Take it easy. Go ahead, Jim.
So, have you ever thought about doing a similar talk to people? Like you're talking mostly to engineers here. Have you ever thought about talking to the more sales side of people about how to talk to? Because you seem to be in a position of having hung out enough with them just to kind of understand this a little bit. Those people. So this kind of works both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't given a talk like this to business people, but the 2 people that are in Raleigh with me, so we have 3 people in Raleigh. One, some of sales, and then the marketing lady just came on and she also does marketing. And they come, marketing lady, she's a lawyer. She has a similar background as me. The guy that helps us with sales was a college athlete, 7 years younger than me. Very much I won't say a bro, but he can bro. And the first thing I said to them, and I try to do this with them, is to get them to understand some of the intricacies of some of our technical or engineering needs. And generally, one of the first things I say to business people is, don't take it personally. These guys are not. They have the most well intention. They're not trying to criticize you. Or they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They really just care about something being done correctly, or something being done right, or something being done precise. And I try to. I almost not sandbag. I'm trying to prepare them for this communication. The problem is that on either extreme of this, the bro and the showman, there's something that you cannot, no matter how many talks I have, it offends people, right? And so it's getting people to realize that sometimes these things happen, and how can we just make that communication better? So yes, absolutely. It's something that it is not an engineering. I'm sitting here talking to you guys, but it is. I can do the same talk, and we can put out more slides about some horrible things about business people and things I'm sure you guys know of and don't appreciate. And I've even run into them myself. Now being 2.5 years into this journey, that I even check myself, like whether it's documenting something or whether it's trying to be more precise. It really depends on the situation, but I mean, it's both parties can learn from each other. Absolutely, I think this is Steve Jobs' point. Is the best actual product and the best actual problem solving comes from these two people. As hard as it is, smashing things together and getting better. So yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
So that book you put up about Dale Carnegie, I've read that book about twice, but I still have trouble like applying that day-to-day conversations. There's a lot in it. Do you have any like specific methods? I mean, I've done things like when I've drafted an email or something, you sit down, you can really analyze what you're doing. It's just a lot to constantly apply all those things. I'm sure just with practicing it's easier.
No, I mean the point you're bringing up, and I said this, is a lot of people read the book and they don't do these things, and it's not me saying like, oh, you don't care about them, you don't. It's because your natural instinct is not to do these things. And I would say in application, some of the things that I constantly feel, the one I put up there is an important one, which has a whole section about it. Like it says things like say people's name. Using a person's name is the sweetest thing a person can hear. He has things like make it, when you're trying to influence somebody, make it their own idea. Start, begin it from different ways with these topics. Start talking about them. Listen more. God, listen more and more. And I would say the best technique is to keep something in your pocket or evaluate when you went through that conversation. How could I do this? For me, in my relationship with my wife, is a perfect example of this. I try to tell myself, you need to be more empathetic. You need to be more empathetic. See it from her perspective. Why is she angry? Or why is she annoyed? Or did she see that differently than you do? And the problem is when you get tired, or you get a lot of sleep, you're really stressed out. These are the first things that go out the window, and you just react. And following his advice is really takes you thinking before you react. It really takes you keeping yourself in bed. What your really is not natural inclinations. So I would just say a lot of it is it's practice. It's like I don't know, maybe it's best practices and code. It's the same thing. Just you have to keep it mindful in your head when you it becomes a thinking exercise. Go ahead.
How do your engineers manage the energy drain of constant communication? Sometimes like a 4-hour meeting, it just really shuts down their minds, and they're like, can we just walk away from this and come back to it another time? How does the business team react to that?
So the best thing to tell you is we have no 4-hour meetings. The hangout I'm telling you that we have once a week is 30 minutes, and we cap it at 30 minutes. We use Slack, and this is a very engineering-driven thing, and I had to get used to it, but it's phenomenal. It's one of the things engineers do really well. It's asynchronous communication. But the problem is there's certain things that can be done asynchronously. There's certain things that need to be done synchronously. I had to learn as a business person when dealing with an engineer that they think in 2-day blocks. Like their days are generally 2 blocks, whereas a business person's day is 8 hours, 8-hour blocks. And my business partner Peter told me all the time, if you interrupt me out of this and I'm in the zone, it's going to take me an hour and a half to 2 hours to get back there. That's when you really ruin it. So in our company, I think we definitely side to the engineering side of things. So when it comes to communication, but what we do since we're remote is we document everything. everything has a Google Doc. If you do work, write it down. So don't write it, don't DM people, write it in a channel. So that if a person wants to see that communication, they have a way to see that communication. If they're not feeling it, they don't want to, they don't have to. It's the same thing. I mean, the whole use of things like an issue tracking. The whole point of it is you can write, and you can document an issue and things and thoughts there, and a person can come to it at a certain time. The business team is a little bit different. I mean, we deal with an email Rhyne constantly, and we talk and have a TV on in our office. That would drive a lot of engineers up the wall. But even Peter, my business partner, is a perfect example. He just has hey, I can't talk right now. Hey, I need to go. Hey, and he's very much an introvert. And a lot of them, we had at our first retreat, we had a 10-day retreat, and we learned very quickly 10 days is way too long to have everybody together at the company. We cut it down to about a 6-day retreat because of that. And a lot of people take a vacation after a retreat because they're so drained from being at the retreat. So I mean, I'm not saying we're perfect at it, but it's definitely something that's real, right? Anybody else got questions? I think we're done out of time. Thank you guys very much for showing up.